Hello and welcome to the Business Revival Conference. I'm Charlotte Nichols from Harvey and Hugo, and I'm going to be talking about how to create a desirable brand. I'll just share my screen with you. There we go. So first of all, I want to talk about the brain, this amazing, miraculous organ that sits between our ears. Now, if you get your fists out, we're not about to start fighting, or virtually anyway, put your fists together in front of you, and that's about the size of your brain. Two hemispheres, about the size of a cauliflower, about a 31-pound lump in your brain that is responsible for everything about your being. Not just that, everything that you know, everything that you believe, everything that you think about other people, that is all resting between your ears within this lump of grey matter, as they call it. Information is transferred on neurons. Between each neuron, there's synapses. There are more synapses than stars in 1,500 Milky Way galaxies. And to put that in perspective, there's about 400 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy. So 1,500 of those. So there's a lot of neural connections. There's a lot going on in there. We're led to believe that there's room for 2.5 million gigabytes of information that we can store in there. And we apparently process 34 gigabytes of data a day. Now, to put that in perspective, that's enough to overload a laptop in a week. So no wonder we're feeling a little bit overwhelmed come Friday evening. All the information that we've stored, we've processed, and what do we do on Friday evening? We probably get our phones out, we probably watch Netflix, we absorb more information into our poor little brains. So it's a miraculous organ. Now, if I was to show you a brand, got one in front of me, Diet Coke. Now, if anyone hasn't heard of this, I will be very shocked, but you never know. What do you think when you see this? What do you think of this brand? I want you to just kind of process that for a little bit, and then I'll tell you about how the brain works in respect of that. So firstly, you'll see it upside down as a blurry image because we see with our brains rather than we see with our eyes. They come in through the eyes as the organ, but it's actually the brain that makes sense of it. It's the thalamus of the brain that's like the switchboard that coordinates everything and forms a proper image of what makes sense to us. It then goes into the amygdala, where it's tagged with emotions and memories and saved there, and feelings. And that's kind of like the emotion and feeling center of the brain. So anything any past experiences you've had, any feel good, any positive, Diet Coke breaks, if you remember the half naked gardener, the memories of that might come up. Then goes over to the neighbor, the hippocampus, where it's stored into our long-term memory. So that's kind of how it all works. And we don't see things as individual. Like you don't just see a metallic can here with some red writing on it. We see things as a whole. We see with our brains. It's called Gestalt, and it's kind of, you don't just look at something at face value. You have all sorts of feelings and emotions attached to it. And it's the same with any brand. If I show you another brand here, one that it's still quite a popular brand, but certainly not as popular as this one. You might not have seen this before. So this is entering your brain for the first time, entering all those different areas of it, potentially attaching feelings. It's actually peach water. That might trigger off, oh, I hate peaches, it's not for me. So all these different feelings that are different to different people. And that's why it's quite interesting. So I wanted to talk about the brain first before I go into the introduction about me, because just demonstrate a little bit about how we think and how we think as a whole. What you think of today, what you think of me, what you think of my brand will be shaped about the way I talk, the way I look, all the pressures piling on, the type of day you're having, whether you've had a stressful morning, whether you've got a big stressful meeting, or whether you've argued with your partner, or whether you're having a brilliant day, the sun is shining, you've got a barbecue planned this evening. That all will factor in this experience, and it will go into your brain. Whether or not it's easily retrievable at a later date or not, it's a different matter, but it's going to register into your brain and go into those 2.5 million gigabytes of data. So about the seminar, now that all the pressure's on, about me and Harvey New Go will be first. I won't spend long on that. We'll talk about components of a top brand, and then 8 tips to generate desire we'll finish on. So this is me. I'm really fascinated, in case you can't already tell, by the science behind how brands work, how our brains work, how as humans we absorb information. And I think a lot of people are becoming so. It's not enough these days to say, right, this is what we're going to do for your brand. We're going to do some PR. It's like, why? Like, how does it work? What's the point in it? I've been running my business now for 12 years. It's been a stressful ride, but it's mostly brilliant. We do PR, social media and content marketing mostly, but a variety of different communications. But what you really want to know is, who are Harvey and Hugo? Not just move that, I think it's in the way of the text. These are the stars of the show. These are the dogs that run it. I am just generally just working for them, essentially. These two little characters actually inspired me to set up the business. Now, if you don't have a dog or any pets, you might think, well, that's ridiculous. But genuinely, they did. I remember feeling quite lost before they came around. And yeah, Harvey was very sensible. I say was, or breaks my heart. Unfortunately, he did die a few years ago, but he lives on. He lives on through the brand. But Harvey was a very sensible, a little border terrier, and PR and marketing should be done on a regular basis. So he was the face of the Harvey and Hugo regular retained services. Hugo, totally mental. And Hugo's still about. He's 14 now. He's calmed down a lot. He kind of totters about. But he was responsible for inspiring the pay as Hugo element and pay as Hugo element of our PR and marketing services, which at the time it wasn't the way to do things. And that suited Hugo. He liked to break the mold. In terms of pay-as-you-go, we've spent a lot of time during the pandemic working on this. We've developed an e-commerce website where you can buy PR and marketing snacks, as we like to call them, but services that are broken down into bite-sized chunks. You can buy them through the website, which is quite new for our industry and what we do. So that's worth checking out. It's great. It's been great for the pandemic because there's been a lot of uncertainty, so you don't have to get tied into contracts. As a business, as Harvey and Hugo, there's three brands. There's the pay-as-you-go, which I've talked about. There's Harvey New Go, which I've talked about. We also have a recruitment and training academy in all the services that we provide. So we aim to be a holistic partner for the PR and marketing journey of any business, because things evolve just like in businesses, and you need an agency to suit that. What is our purpose? It is to build lovable and memorable brands, and we do that by telling stories. We tell stories one at a time, and over time, a consistent approach, it does lead to brand awareness and building lovable and memorable brands. I will let you know why I've shared my purpose later on in this, because it is a key component of creating a desirable brand. So hopefully you all know what desire is, a strong need or want for something. But people often get confused with a brand in terms of a brand's just a logo, a brand's just an identity, it's just a product, it's just a service, it's just this can of Coke, Diet Coke, it's just the brand. Actually, and I agree with Mary here, it's about a feeling, a gut feeling that's kind of deep within your implicit memories, that sometimes you don't even know where it has come from, because a lot of brand memories and associations seep through our subconscious memory, which is scary. So you're not even in control of where that feeling or that message has come from. So, and feelings are complicated. Feelings mean different things to different people, and different memories, different experiences all shape your feelings. So you can't just say that one brand will mean things to the same person. Same brands mean different things to different people. So it is something that's very hard to create, and very hard to create desire for. A little bit of a quiz here. Which brands do you think made Interbrands Best Global Brands 2020? Now think about 2020. You probably don't want to. It was a bit of an odd year, kind of similar to where we've been in 2021 as well. There has been no year like it. How would this affect brands and the ones that have proved popular? Has it changed things? Has it not? Maybe, hopefully there's a chat function. You can pop in the chat box brands that you think that will be on this list. It's not necessarily brands that you really like, but which out of all of the world, which brands are the most popular or most desirable? Well, here are the top 25. There's loads more. If you want to Google Interbrands Global Brands 2020, there's a full list of them. It's a really interesting report, actually. I would recommend that you do so. But you can see that trends in technology, and a lot of these brands have been in this list for a long time, but it's really cemented, the technological changes, things we had to do during the pandemic. the way we shop, for example, in Amazon. It's really cemented that technological brand. You can see some of the classics on there, like food and drink related, fashion, again, usually always on there. Disney's always a strong player within this. Again, it's had a terrible year with a lot of the theme parks closed, but it did launch its media channels, equivalent to Netflix, during 2020, I believe. Social media on there, Facebook was there, but Instagram, interestingly, is a new entry to the chart. So there's some of the top players, like global brands on the list. And what's the criteria? What's Interbrand kind of define as the strength factors? I'll just move that in case it's in the way. It's got two different categories, internal and external. Internal leadership factors, so involves the direction, so the purpose of the business, the ambition, the alignment is all pulling in the same direction. Empathy is a really important one we'll talk about later. Are we listening to our customers? Are we understanding them? Agility, again, agility has been really tested during the pandemic. Speed to change, speed to kind of turn things around. External factors, engagement, how distinctive is your brand? It's not enough just to be visible. The coherence of message, things have to be authentic. Customers need to feel that they're part of the dialogue. They need to participate. That's also a really important one. Your brand has to be present if it wants to be desirable. You know, people need to know about it. They need to be talking about it. Trust. People don't purchase anything without having that trust in the quality, trust in the service, unless things are extremely discounted. And affinity, customers need to feel a positive connection, shared values with brands. That's all really important. So it's that whole holistic approach. And, it is a given these days that the brand quality or the service or the product quality, it's a strong, it's good, it's not enough, it's a given. There's so much competition out there, so it's all these other factors. It used to be about just creating that really quality product or really quality service. Now you have to create that desire first. You could have an amazingly quality, the best product in the world, but if no one knows about it, it's not going to sell. On the other hand, if you've got a product or service that's good, it's not bad, it's not amazing, it's good, but you've got an incredible amount of desire that's generated for it, then you're going to sell a lot more of that. So creating desire overrides creating supply of the product or service these days. So that's something interesting to bear in mind. Right, Mr. Maslow is up now, and you might be thinking, why is he here? It's not an HR seminar. But actually, this did originate in marketing, and it's incredibly important to marketing. What we've got to remember, no matter what business you work in, no matter what your target audience, your target demographic is, we are communicating human to human brain to human brain, as I've just covered. And we have to consider our basic needs. And these are very important and relevant even still today. So the physiological, the basics, eat, sleep, drink, safety, love and belonging, esteem, and that self-fulfillment at the top. A lot of it is about tribal behavior. Even the physiological, when we were caveman back in the day, we had to hunt for food as a tribe. And when it comes to brands, we're very tribal about our behavior. You only need to, on a Sunday, have a look at Harley Davidson motorcycle drivers. They're all kind of the same, wearing the same, on the same bikes. And almost our brains fall out if we're ever stressed or we don't know what to do. Is when in doubt, do what everyone else is doing. So we go back to that tribal instinct, which is very interesting. So this will flow through a lot of the kind of 8 tips that I'm going to go on to about how to create a desirable brand, because it's human behavior and we are all human. So number 1, the reason I shared my purpose at the start of the seminar is because it matters to people. And I'm sure you've all heard of Simon Sinek and his famous quote, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it's so true. Essentially, he's saying they buy your purpose because this aligns with the emotional side of your brain, the amygdala that we talked about earlier on. The similar values resonate and they build that brand loyalty. A lot of businesses know what they do. They roughly know how they do it. Not many know why. It's really important to know that. You'll notice with some of my tips as well as There's two, they're quite symbiotic. There's purpose and ambition here. The first one is kind of a given. You need to do this to create a desirable brand. The next one is if you want to create a really desirable brand, add this in. So add in your ambition. This is something that Tesla does really well. Tesla's mission is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. And that's quite a bold statement, but what it does is it breaks this down into bite-sized goal, almost little flag posts, and it communicates every stage that it's at along the way. So people know that their why is actually going to come to fruition. They're actually working towards that, because customers are savvy these days. It's not enough to just say, we're going to do this. They're like, well, show me how, show me when, and what's your progress towards it? So it's really important that you do that. Have an ambition, break it down into smaller goals, and communicate that internally and externally. And that is probably why Tesla overtook Toyota as the world's most valuable car maker last year, despite only selling 370,000 to Toyota's 10 million and having a lot less revenue. It's all about, having that clear purpose and communicating a clear ambition as well, and showing that you're achieving that. Your brand needs to be visible. It comes back to what I said just earlier. You can have the best product or service in the world, but if no one knows about it, you're not going to sell any. People need to know. The people aren't mind readers, unfortunately. So you need to have a strong PR and marketing strategy in place. You need to tell people, you need to create or manufacture that desire for the brand. Again, on the other side of it, because a lot of people are making their brands visible these days, and it's quite a saturated, busy market, you also need to make it distinctive. It has to stand out. How can you make your brand different to the others, or market it in a different way? You have to interrupt and capture the imagination of your audience. A good way of doing this is to ask an open question as part of your brand. So probably the best example in the world of this is Nike, and it's just do it slogan. Now it could have said, just go running, just, go on that long run, but it's left it open, just do it. And when it launched this campaign, it got loads of letters and positive messages saying, thank you so much for doing this. You have inspired me to do this, this, and this. And it's just 3 words, but they're so powerful. It's because it captures that imagination. It lets people imagine what it would be like to be doing it. Just do it, right? What have I always wanted to do, right? I should do it. And actually, it's increased its market share from 18 to 43% once this tagline was developed. There will be other factors that have gone into this, but it is a strange coincidence as well. So leave things to the audience's imagination, and remember that you've got to interrupt and capture their imagination to be distinctive. Clear and concise. So this is a caveman, back to the caveman days, back to Maslow, back to the hierarchy of needs. When we were cavemen, we were never sure of, and even many years in the future before that, and even unfortunately now for some people, we weren't sure of where our next meal was coming from. Fortunately for many people, this isn't the case anymore, but our brains still believe it is. Our brains got so used to, over the years, to conserving energy, because our brain, I think I mentioned it earlier, it uses 25% of our energy sometimes when we're resting. Top chess players can burn 6,000 calories during chess tournaments during a day without even moving. So that's how much your brain can use. Your brain does burn calories. So it conserves them. It's used to conserving them. If I presented a big maths formula there, it probably wouldn't even bother to think it out. So the message here is, if you confuse, you lose. You've got to have clear messaging for your clients, clear brand story, clear taglines, clear messages, clear benefits. Communicate how you can solve their problems, what solving the problem looks like for them and ends in success, or what it doesn't look like, because sometimes people are more motivated to avoid failure than to strive for success. One thing that's important to remember is you can't generate desire for something if people don't understand it. So you really have to make your product service clear and your messaging around that. People don't necessarily buy products that are the cheapest or that are the best. They buy products that they can understand the easiest or the fastest. Again, to go a step further, make your message concise. Why say something in 100 words when you only need to use 3 in Nike's case, or 10? Be as concise as you can. People don't have time. We live in very busy worlds. So have a clear message that is concise. Key person of influence. So I've got Jeff here to demonstrate this one, but it's true in a lot of businesses. Again, as humans, we relate to other humans. We relate to other human behavior. So it's important that we have a person that we can look to. And yes, some are more kind of relatable than others, but I'm sure Jeff in the early days when he was setting up the business, he was easier to relate to. So don't let your key person in your business hide behind the business. And you can have several of these, but it does work better if you've just got the one. And again, if we use the example of Tesla, they tend to have more followers on social media. So Musk has about 50 million Twitter followers, whereas Tesla has only about 9 million. It's the same for Jeff and Amazon and all the other brands. So you need a clear figurehead. It's great if they've written a book. That's a fantastic marketing tool. But if they're not, it's quite a tough ask to go back to your boss and say, can you write a book? But if not, try a blog. Speaking opportunities, traditional media, profile building, it's all really important. Awards. You've got to leave a trail of breadcrumbs that lead back to your website, back to the business, and just make that person accessible and relatable to. It will work wonders for the brand and create that desire. Listening and empathizing. So it's never been as important. We live in a really kind of anxious world, not just with what's happened over the past year. It certainly hasn't helped, but it's been going that way for a while. So we talked about our brains. Our poor brains are bombarded with information. We're at overload kind of most days. It's really important that we listen to our customers and let them shape the future of the business. You've got to listen to their problems. Often a lot of marketing companies or marketing agencies, or businesses in general, they sell to external problems that people have, but customers buy solutions to internal problems they have. So an example of this is, I need to paint my house. It really needs paint. The internal problem is, I can't have my friends around. I can't see my friends until this wall's painted because I'm just embarrassed. So if I was a painter, instead of saying I paint houses, I help you have your friends around and feel really confident and great about your house. Wix actually, Wix the company, retailer, it has recently launched a house embarrassment campaign, which has actually been really successful because it gets to that heart of the problem. Like, got a new kitchen, I've dealt with my house embarrassment, now I can have people around. It's dealing with the internal problems. People say marketers are really busy because there's no staff, they need more supply, maybe they have a skills shortage as well. They're all their external problems. Internally, they're stressed, they're frustrated, they're tired. So talk to those internal emotions. It'll help with the empathy. It's also good if you have people within your organization or marketing teams who understand, who have been in similar positions. It really just helps with empathy. People are more likely to trust you and want to work with you that way. Since the new CEO of Microsoft, Nadella, came in, he's changed their philosophy. Their new mantra is listen more and talk less. And he's changed the culture from culture of know-it-alls to a culture of learn-it-alls. Again, something very important, and it has kind of turned around the business. Listen and also show empathy. Number 6, community and constituents. Community is nothing new. Since social media's come around, people have been using the term community more, rather than followers, rather than just treating them as followers. Again, it goes back to Maslow and that tribes. We want to feel connected to each other. We need to listen and empathize. We also need to build affinity. We need to have positive connections and shared values and trust. The people, your customers, they are the brand at the end of the day. It's those feelings that they have that create the perceptions of brands. You need to create a sense of belonging, make them feel proud that they are part of your brand, that they're almost build that brand ambassador sense. And, again, is it enough to have a community, or do we need constituents? Make people feel like they matter, give them a vote, let them shape your company, let them ask questions, listen to them, listen to their problems, ask questions like, how do they feel? Social media is a wonderful tool for this when done correctly. Also, there's forums, and you can also put on exclusive events, previews, send personal letters, email campaign done well. A lot of user-generated content can help with this as well. Nike, again, to talk about them, but they are in the top 25, and they got involved in the Black Lives Matter movement long before 2020, and they weren't afraid to commit and share their values, and because of that, they've built a loyal community, loyal constituents that are passionate advocates of the brand. Hyundai did, during the last recession in 2008, they kind of said to customers, buy our car, if you lose your job or you can't afford it anymore, just give it back. And that worked wonders. There's still some loyal Hyundai brand followers now that will buy that brand because of how they acted during the recession and during the pandemic. An example of a good brand was Starbucks not just giving away free coffees to the NHS workers, but also putting back a lot into the community. So it's often during these times of crises that brands show their true colours, and it really makes a difference, and they're remembered, hopefully for the right reasons, but some for the wrong reasons. Consistency and coherent. So consistency is really underrated, particularly in this world of immediate, fast results that everyone wants. Consistent activity over time, that's the key word there, over time, it generates really powerful results. If you think of a tap dripping in an empty bath and a derelict house, over a year, it can corrode the paint, it can kind of rust the bath, eventually it will destroy the bath. It's over time. If that was just for a few weeks or a few months, it wouldn't do anything. And with marketing and PR campaigns now and building brands, people often don't have the patience, and it's really difficult trying to manage expectations when they're saying we've only got 3 months or 6 months, we need to see results. Sometimes even a year isn't enough. Apparently it can take 36 months to generate brand awareness with a new brand, and people really need to give things time. Consistent, it's hard to be consistent as well when it's your own things. You've got to have that faith and stick to it. Robert Zajonc had stated mere exposure effect, which basically is familiarity breeds likability over time when it comes to brands. That's why McDonald's, that's why Coca-Cola use billboards so much. You might think, well, their brand's so known, do they really need to do that? But again, we've got lazy brains. We'll think of the first thing that we come to because of our caveman days, conserving calories. So it's really important to get that consistent message across. Again, to add that extra, to make it extra desirable, things need to be coherent. You can use different messaging on different platforms, different techniques, but it has to have the same values of the company. Gucci do this really well. They share it on a variety of platforms, different content, different stories, but their values are always true and they remain authentic. Taglines and triggers. This is the final one, but again, it's really important. Remember when we were talking about how information enters the brain? When it goes into the long-term memory, it's stored in what's called engrams, which are networks of neurons. And it's all about associations. It's like a filing system. You store things that relate to each other, hopefully. And that's the same as what your brain does. And that's why taglines like Kit Kats, like have a break, have a Kit Kat, are so important. Because good ones will fit into everyday lives of people and act as that constant reminder for that brand. It's also called priming, where you think of it associating things associated with your brand that you want in a positive way that will go into your memory, like Apple and innovation. The two are often synonymous. So think about kind of have a clear, concise tagline that says what you do, and try and link it to every part of their lives. Sometimes people try and be too clever with this, but like Kit Kat, everyone has a break, and hopefully everyone, well, not everyone has a Kit Kat, but you know what I mean. Think about what is a everyday part of their life. What do they use? What do they think during that process? So maybe talk to your customers and go through that, or maybe you know them enough yourself to do that. And think about what sort of triggers can be associated. Good example of this is if I was to say, what do cows drink? Your brain might want to yell out milk, milk, even though they don't, except when they're a calf. Because in our minds, in that engram, it's just like mind maps, essentially. We have cows. And then if someone said cows, the next thing that most people would say was milk. And so that's the way our brains work. And so actually our brains actually speak not in the language, not verbal or written communication like we do, but it's called mentalese apparently. And it's a lot of kind of imagery, more imagery based and more feelings based. So it does no harm to do a brainstorm about all the different possible associations that people could have with your product or service and how they feel, and put that into imagery, or even kind of magazine cuttings, go old school, or go on Pinterest and form a mood board around it. It's a useful exercise to do. People might struggle to see the value because it is going so deep into that kind of the human brain and the associations that you make, but it's definitely worthwhile. Also, imagery is really important. And things change as well. If you think back to the 50s, Marlboro cigarettes were mainly targeted at women back in the day. They launched a campaign to change that, to make them more appealing to men. So they launched an image of the Marlboro cowboy, which was very appealing to men back in the 50s. It wouldn't be so much today. That image that people could have in their mind as a personal kind of a graphic you could create today as well, it helps cement that feeling. So yeah, it's hopefully that's all something to consider. I've done a little takeaway which you can contact us to get a desirable brand framework, where you can just, as again, it's a framework, it's a guide. You can put kind of brief answers in there, and hopefully you'd have a larger document that talks about it, just so you're checking off this list and following the guide to making your brand desirable. Here are our contact details. If you would like to ask for that, or if you have any other questions, or you would just like, support in creating a brand strategy, or PR or marketing or any of our services, they are there. And I will go back to the questions. If anyone has any questions, now is your chance to ask. Hopefully there's still time. If not, pick up the phone, send us a tweet, send us an email, and we will get back to you that way as well. Or visit our stand. We're still on our stand for the rest of the next half of the day. But thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.